Every night, he sleeps with his dead wife until he finally discovers the horrifying truth about who keeps opening her eyes at midnight, and why her spirit refuses to rest. This is a true story from the eastern part of Nigeria, where it is believed that if a man does not pay his wife's bride price before she dies, he will be forced to marry the dead woman, and even pay her bride price after she is already dead. This is the story of a young man named Chukwuma. Watch till the end and tell me, should this culture be abolished, or should it continue to exist? Chukwuma was a very handsome man, tall, well-built, and charming. In the bustling city where he lived, he was the desire of every woman, not just because of his looks, but also because he was hardworking and ambitious. He worked in a well-known organization called Prime Solutions Limited, a company that handled financial and business services for clients across the city. Chukwuma was respected for his dedication and professionalism. Every day, he would wake up early, dress sharply in his crisp shirt and trouser, and head to work. His colleagues admired him, and clients trusted him. Yet, despite the attention from so many women, Chukwuma remained humble and focused on his goals. One sunny afternoon, the office doors swung open, and a lady walked in. She was elegant, well-dressed, and carried an air of confidence that made everyone in the reception glance her way. Chukwuma noticed her immediately. She approached the counter and introduced herself as Adaobi, a client who had come to request a special service from the company. Her voice was calm but firm, and there was a mysterious look in her eyes that made Chukwuma curious. "Good afternoon, sir," Adaobi said politely. "I was told you handle important client requests. I hope you can assist me today." Chukwuma smiled warmly and nodded. "Of course, ma'am. Please have a seat. Tell me what you need, and I'll make sure it's taken care of." As she explained her request, Chukwuma listened attentively, jotting down notes and asking questions. There was something unusual about her case, but he didn't let it show. He had handled difficult clients before and prided himself on solving problems efficiently. After a while, he completed all the necessary paperwork and guided Adaobi through the next steps. She looked impressed by his knowledge, patience, and professionalism. When the meeting ended, Adaobi stood up and extended her hand. "Thank you, Chukwuma. You've been very helpful. I hope we meet again soon." Chukwuma shook her hand, unaware that this encounter would mark the beginning of a strange and supernatural turn in his life. In the days that followed, Chukwuma couldn't stop thinking about Adaobi. There was something captivating about her presence, her voice, and the way she carried herself. Soon, she began visiting the office more frequently, always under the guise of business matters. Chukwuma, of course, welcomed her warmly, and each encounter left him more drawn to her. Their conversations became longer, filled with laughter and shared stories. Chukwuma discovered that Adaobi had a sharp mind, a kind heart, and a curious fascination with city life. One afternoon, after finishing some client work together, Chukwuma suggested they grab lunch nearby. Adaobi agreed, smiling warmly as they walked side by side down the bustling streets of the city. Over lunch, their connection deepened. They shared personal dreams, childhood memories, and secrets they had never told anyone. Chukwuma felt a bond forming that went beyond simple attraction. Soon, their outings became frequent. They went on evening walks, visited cafes, and explored different parts of the city together. It was clear to everyone around them that something special was blossoming. Friends at work noticed the change in Chukwuma. The usually focused and serious young man now wore a constant smile, his eyes lighting up whenever Adaobi was mentioned. Chukwuma and Adaobi's dates became the highlight of their weeks. From lunch meetings to dinner by the riverside, their connection grew stronger, and love began to take root in both of their hearts. Despite the busy city life, they always found time for each other. On weekends, they explored new restaurants, visited parks, and sometimes just stayed home, enjoying each other's company. It wasn't long before Adaobi had become more than a client. She was now Chukwuma's girlfriend, his companion, and the person he could imagine sharing his life with. Yet, unknown to Chukwuma, the shadows of an old tradition were quietly beginning to stir in the background, ready to change everything. Meanwhile, Chukwuma had been in a serious relationship with a beautiful and kind-hearted lady named Amara. They had been together for 2 years, and everyone knew they were meant to be. Their families had even started preparing for their wedding. Chukwuma had always been devoted to Amara. He admired her patience, intelligence, and the warmth she brought into his life. Their love was strong, and the wedding was set to take place in just 3 months. However, ever since Adaobi entered Chukwuma's life, things began to change. He found himself distracted at work, often thinking of Adaobi during meetings or while helping clients. His usual attentiveness toward Amara began to waver. He would arrive late for dates, cancel plans, or seem distant during conversations. Amara noticed, but she attributed it to the stress of wedding preparations. Chukwuma's friends began whispering about the change. "He's different these days," one colleague said. "Something has gotten to him, maybe that new client he's always talking about." Even Amara's family noticed. The excitement and harmony that once surrounded the wedding plans were now tinged with subtle worry. They couldn't understand why Chukwuma seemed so distant and preoccupied. Despite all this, Chukwuma couldn't ignore the feelings Adeobi had stirred in him. Every time he saw her, his heart raced, and the pull toward her seemed irresistible, even though he loved Amara. He knew he was treading dangerous ground. His loyalty was torn between his longtime fiancée, who awaited their wedding, and Adeobi, the mysterious woman who had captured his attention unexpectedly. 3 months away from the wedding, Chukwuma found himself at a crossroads. The pressure of tradition, love, and desire all weighed heavily on him, yet he felt powerless to resist the strange pull that Adeobi had over him. Little did Chukwuma know, the entrance of Adeobi into his life was not a coincidence. Ancient customs and a mysterious force from the past were slowly circling closer, ready to intervene and test his fate in ways he could never imagine. One afternoon, while at his desk at Prime Solutions Limited, Chukwuma's phone rang. It was Amara. Her voice, usually calm and cheerful, now carried a hint of worry. "Chukwuma, is everything all right with you?" Amara asked. "You've changed, you don't call like you used to. Are you avoiding me?" Chukwuma quickly dismissed her concerns, forcing a reassuring tone. "I'm fine, Amara. Just busy with work. Nothing to worry about." But deep down it was a lie. The truth was that his mind was consumed by Adeobi, the new girl who had entered his life and stirred feelings he didn't fully understand. After hanging up, Chukwuma leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. His thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion, guilt, and temptation. Should he break up with Amara and pursue Adeobi fully? He thought about Amara, their love, the wedding plans, the life they had envisioned together. She had been with him through thick and thin, yet now, the allure of Adeobi seemed impossible to resist. Chukwuma whispered to himself, almost as if seeking reassurance from the universe. "If I am with Adeobi for a while, maybe I can go back to Amara afterward. I can't really leave her. I love her too much." The internal struggle weighed heavily on him. He knew that entertaining feelings for another woman while engaged was wrong, but the pull toward Adeobi felt irresistible, like something beyond his control. Every time he thought of Amara, guilt surged through him. Every time he thought of Adeobi, desire and excitement filled his chest. It was as if he was being pulled in 2 directions, and his heart could not choose. Little did Chukwuma know, this internal conflict was about to intersect with a force far stronger than mere attraction. A mysterious custom from the past, a warning that would shake the very foundations of his life. 3 weeks after their intimate encounter, Adeobi called Chukwuma with excitement in her voice. "Chukwuma, I have good news for you," she exclaimed. Her happiness was palpable as she continued. "We are pregnant. We're going to have a child together." Chukwuma's face went pale. His heart raced, but not with joy. Instead, fear and panic filled him. He could not believe what Adeobi had just told him. "Amara, you can't be pregnant for me," he said coldly, his voice void of the warmth it once held. I'm not ready for marriage, and I'm not ready to be a father," Chukwuma continued. "You should know I don't love you the way you think. I cannot marry you, and you cannot be the mother of my child." Adeobi's excitement quickly turned to shock and confusion. She could not believe the man she trusted and loved would speak to her this way. "You need to abort the pregnancy," Chukwuma said harshly, his eyes avoiding hers. The words hit her like a knife, leaving her trembling with anger, disbelief, and pain. Amara struggled to speak, tears welling up in her eyes. "Chukwuma, how can you say this? After everything, after our love, you want me to destroy our child?" Chukwuma shook his head. "I told you, I am not ready. You shouldn't expect me to change my mind. This child cannot exist with me." Adeobi hung up the phone, her heart breaking. Meanwhile, Chukwuma sat in silence, his mind consumed by the new woman in his life, Chukwuma, unaware that the consequences of his actions were about to catch up with him in ways he could never imagine. That same day, Chukwuma called Adeobi to his house under the pretense of talking things through. She arrived, trusting him as always, unaware of the danger that awaited her. He gave Adeobi some pills, claiming they were meant to calm her and help her feel better. In reality, the drugs were intended to terminate her pregnancy without her knowing. Amara, trusting him blindly, took the pills and left his house. She felt uneasy but thought she was following his instructions for her own good. When she got home, Adeobi began to feel strange. Soon, she started bleeding heavily, fear gripping her heart. She cried out for help as her parents rushed to her side. "Amara, what happened? What did you take?" her mother asked, panic in her voice. Trembling, Adeobi explained everything. "I was pregnant and Chukwuma, he gave me some pills. He said it would calm me down." Her father's face twisted in anger and disbelief. "That man! We need to go to the hospital immediately." Before rushing to the hospital, Adeobi gave her parents Chukwuma's office address, home address, and phone number, hoping they could confront him and make him take responsibility for what he had done. But despite their desperate rush to save her, Amara's condition worsened. The drugs had caused severe complications, and the hospital staff fought to stabilize her. Tragically, Adeobi lost her life that day. The young woman who had trusted Chukwuma completely was gone, leaving behind heartbreak, grief, and a growing sense of justice waiting to be served in ways he could never imagine. After Adeobi's tragic death, her grieving parents went straight to Chukwuma's house. Consumed by anger and sorrow, they demanded justice for their daughter. The authorities were called, and Chukwuma was arrested for his role in Adeobi's death. In the city, news of the incident spread quickly, leaving friends and colleagues in shock. While in custody, Chukwuma's mind was racing. He tried to deny responsibility, to reason his way out, but deep down, fear began to creep into his heart. After being released on bail, Chukwuma was summoned by Adeobi's parents to their village in the eastern region of Nigeria. There, he was confronted with an ancient tradition that he had never imagined. "You must marry our daughter, even in death," her father said solemnly. "You must pay the bride price and take Adeobi to the village for burial. She cannot rest in Lagos, tradition forbids it." Chukwuma laughed nervously, thinking it was some sort of cruel joke. "You want me to marry a dead woman? This isn't serious." But as he left their presence and returned home, strange things began to happen. Shadows moved unnaturally in his room, and a chill filled the air even when the city was warm. That night, Chukwuma awoke to find Adeobi beside him, not as she had been in life, but eerily real, as if nothing had changed. She looked at him with the same eyes, the same warmth, yet he could feel the coldness of death in her touch. Every night after that, Chukwuma experienced the same terrifying reality. Adeobi appeared to him, making love to him, reminding him that he had broken a sacred law, and that the price of ignoring tradition was far greater than he had ever imagined. Terrified, Chukwuma began to realize that this was no dream, no trick of his mind. The village tradition was real, and now, he was bound to a fate that would follow him relentlessly until he fulfilled the demands of the dead. After nights of terror and sleeplessness, Chukwuma had no choice. The visions of Amara were relentless, and the weight of the ancient tradition left him powerless to resist. He reluctantly agreed to marry the dead Adeobi, understanding that he must pay her bride price and follow the customs to the letter, or face consequences far worse than fear itself. Chukwuma traveled to Adeobi's village, his heart heavy with shame, guilt, and confusion. Villagers watched him closely, knowing the sacred laws he was about to obey. Under the guidance of the elders, Chukwuma performed all the necessary rituals. The bride price was paid, offerings were made, and every tradition was fulfilled with painstaking attention to detail. As part of the customs, he prepared Adeobi's body to be transported to the village cemetery. Every step was heavy with the weight of his actions, and the eyes of the villagers reminded him of the seriousness of the tradition. Finally, with rituals complete, Chukwuma began the journey back to Lagos. His mind was racing, not just with guilt, but with fear of what would happen next. The road was long and winding, and the city's bright lights in the distance offered little comfort. Chukwuma's thoughts were haunted by the visions of Adeobi, alive yet dead, calling him, reminding him of his transgressions. Suddenly, as he drove through a particularly dark stretch of road, a vehicle appeared out of nowhere. Chukwuma tried to brake, but it was too late. The car skidded uncontrollably and crashed violently into a tree. The impact left Chukwuma unconscious. All what Chukwuma has been experiencing was just a dream. Chukwuma was in a dream, and he was shown what will happen to him. Chukwuma woke up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding and his body trembling. The dream felt so real, so vivid, that he could still feel Adeobi's presence beside him. Fear gripped him. He knew in his heart that it wasn't just a dream. It was a warning, a message about the consequences of his actions. In desperation, Chukwuma ran to his church that morning, seeking guidance and protection. He approached his pastor, his voice shaking as he recounted everything he had seen. "Pastor," Chukwuma said, clutching his hands together, "I had a dream, and it was terrifying. I don't know what to do. Please help me understand." The pastor listened carefully, nodding solemnly as Chukwuma described the dream in detail. The accident, the dead bride, the rituals, and Amara appearing to him. After a moment of quiet thought, the pastor spoke, his voice calm but serious. "Chukwuma, God is showing you mercy. He is warning you to be careful. This dream is not just imagination. It is a sign of what could happen if you make certain choices." Chukwuma's eyes widened, fear gripping him even tighter. "What do you mean, Pastor?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The pastor explained, "When you go to the office today, you will meet a lady. God is just showing you a vision of what might happen if you pursue her. He is giving you a chance to avoid disaster. Listen carefully and do not let temptation lead you into sin." Chukwuma felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief because he now understood the purpose of the dream, but dread because he realized how close he had come to destruction if he had followed his desires blindly. That day, as Chukwuma prepared to leave for work, the warning echoed in his mind. He knew he had to be vigilant, to guard his heart, and to avoid making choices that could awaken the wrath of traditions, spirits, and consequences beyond his understanding. And lo and behold, the lady from his dream appeared in real life. Adeobi walked into the office just as he had seen in the vision, her presence calm yet commanding. Chukwuma attended to her professionally, guiding her through the service she needed, but he kept his distance, determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Once their meeting ended, he resolved firmly. He would have nothing more to do with her. The visions of Amara and the terrifying consequences of ignoring tradition were still fresh in his mind. He reflected on the nightmare he had lived through. The nights haunted by Adeobi, the rituals, and the ordeal of paying a bride price for a dead woman. He shuddered at the thought. "I cannot believe this type of culture exists," Chukwuma muttered to himself. "To sleep with a ghost, pay the bride price of a woman who is dead. This is madness." Though he had survived the ordeal, the memory of the supernatural warnings and the law of the village would remain with him forever. It was a lesson he could never forget. Chukwuma began to speak out about the experience, sharing his story with friends and family, warning them about the dangers of ignoring such traditions or falling into temptation. He pondered deeply on the culture itself, the laws, the customs, and the consequences, and wondered whether it should continue or be abolished. To my audience, do you think this culture should be abolished, or is it a way of maintaining law and ensuring people honor their commitments in marriage? Drop your comments and tell me what you think. Should such traditions exist, or should they end for the sake of humanity?